Do you want a hug? I won't cough on you, I swear.
Ugh. What is up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel, and if you are new here, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, I don't usually sound like this. I'm sick. I don't know what else to tell you. I hope you guys don't mind, and if you do mind, then you know where the door is. Oh, I actually look like death. Look at my head. I still feel like I look pretty fly for someone who's about to like fall asleep. Okay, so let's get into this week's case. This one is like a bigger case. I know that I usually do small cases, but this one intrigued me. So today we're going to be talking about Brianna Maitland. Brianna was born on October 8, 1986 in Burlington, Vermont. Her mum and dad's name was Bruce and Kelly. Brianna had an older brother, and the family grew up in kind of like the border between the US and Canada. Now this one is kind of interesting because it does make a lot of people question the family dynamic, purely because Brianna decided to move out at age 17. I've seen a lot of locals comment on this fact, and I think that in that area, a lot of younger people do emancipate and have a little bit more freedom from their parents. But something to note about this case is that it wasn't because of any particular, like, you know, it wasn't an abusive home of what we know. The reason was simply because Brianna wanted to live closer to her friends. Another thing was that Brianna's friends lived in a different school district, and so Brianna wanted to move closer so that she could then enroll in the same school as all of her friends. Now, as you can imagine, moving out at 17 years old, not having a lot of money, also still being at school can be very, very difficult, and it was for Brianna. It wasn't this amazing life of just hanging out with your friends every day that she had envisioned before she moved out, but she was still strong-hearted. She wanted to stick through it. Even though she was living rough, she didn't go back to living in the family home, even though she still had close contact with her mum and dad. I guess this is one of those situations as well where she wasn't asking for help. I think when you are 17 years old and you decide to make a decision that big, you want to stick it out as long as you can, kind of as a pride thing, but also as like an independent rebellion type thing. Like, even though there wasn't anything horribly wrong in the house, it's kind of like, well, shit, if I go back now, they gonna know that I made the wrong decision, you know what I'm saying? So Brianna wasn't asking her parents for financial help, or even, I guess, help with her schoolwork, because what ended up happening was she couldn't handle the balance of work, living, and school life. So what happened was she had to actually drop out of high school, and she decided to move in with a childhood friend and start working. So things weren't really working out for Brianna, but she still wanted to go to college. So what she did was she enrolled in a GED program. This is when we start talking about her disappearance, because it was actually on the day that she sat her GED exam. It was a Friday morning. This was in 2004 in March. It was the 19th, and she had sat her GED exam, and then afterwards she decided that she was going to celebrate with her mother by going out to lunch. Now, her father was away on a business trip, but she was still celebrating with her mother, and after lunch they went and did some, like, you know, errands and shopping. And one thing that Brianna needed for the next day was a pair of black trousers, because she was starting a new job. She was already working a dishwashing job, but she decided she wanted to work 2 jobs, and this other job required more of a casual business attire. So that's what her and her mum were going to the shops to buy. So while Brianna and Kelly, her mum, were at the shops, Kelly was in line to purchase something, and her daughter Brianna noticed there was some sort of thing that she needed to do in the parking lot. And Brianna all of a sudden was like, I need to go to the parking lot, but I will come back, and I'll see you in a bit. And thinking nothing of it, her mum was like, okay, and just continued in line to purchase whatever it is that she was buying. When Kelly went out into the parking lot to meet her daughter, she said that her daughter had gone from being, you know, really hopeful for the future, talking about, you know, what college she was gonna go to. She was also very excited for her new job, to now being extremely shaken and scared. So Brianna was kind of spooked. She then excused herself and said that she needed to go home and get ready for her other job. So her mum dropped her off at Jillian Stout's house, which is the friend that she moved in with. Brianna at the time was actually driving one of her mother's cars, so it was still registered to Kelly, but Brianna was driving it. Brianna then wrote a note for her housemate Jillian, which said that she was going to be back after work. I'm not entirely sure why she needed to write this note. I would never tell my housemate that I'm gonna be home after work. It's just something that you assume. So that's something that's like flagged in my head as like, why would you need to do that? Is that normal behavior? Or was it like a key situation? So the car that Brianna was driving was a 1985 Oldsmobile sedan. So she went to work as planned and nobody commented on anything strange. Like, no strange behavior from Brianna. It was just normal. After her shift, which finished at 11:20, the employees said that nothing, like, it didn't seem like she was leaving with anyone. There was definitely nobody around her car when she got in it, and she definitely left alone from what they could tell. Brianna had also mentioned to her fellow employees that she was heading home so that she could get rest to start her new job the next day. But Brianna never actually made it home. And nobody noticed that Brianna didn't make it home because her housemate was actually away for the weekend and nobody else lived there and nobody else was checking. So it would be the next day in the early afternoon, so on the Saturday afternoon, that a state trooper would be going past the Old Dutch Burn house, which is an abandoned house that the locals just call it the Old Dutch Burn house. Somebody had backed their car into the building. So it was backed into the side of the building, as in it was literally half of the car was in the wall. The police officer just thought it was a drunk driver who had backed into the wall and they had fled the scene. So the car was impounded. It was towed, it was impounded, and it turned out that that was actually Brianna's vehicle. The Old Dutch Burn house is only 1.6 kilometers away from her workplace. That is walkable distance. Something to note about the car is that she had 2 uncashed paychecks in the passenger seat, and there was also loose change and apparently a broken necklace and an unlit cigarette. The unlit cigarette one is something that I've seen in a lot of my research, but I've also seen that that was unconfirmed. So either way, there were these items, also including a water bottle and a half-empty water bottle that was outside of the vehicle. Something to flag, I guess, for you guys, or at least something that I flagged, was that they were uncashed paychecks. There is some speculation that Kelly was experimenting with hard drugs like crack cocaine just before her disappearance. And those who dispute this, namely me, would say that a drug addict, especially someone who is addicted or dependent on crack cocaine, isn't going to have 2 uncashed paychecks. I've seen a lot of people dispute that argument by saying that, well, it was a Friday, some people get paid on Fridays, and she had 2 jobs. But I've read that one of the jobs was obviously the job that she had had for a while, but the other job she hadn't started yet. She was starting the next day, and that's why they needed the black trousers on that Friday. So to me, that would suggest that if she did get paid on a Friday, she at least had 1 saved uncashed paycheck, and at the very best she had 2 uncashed saved paychecks. And that would suggest to me that she is saving, and that does fall in line with the fact that she was starting a new job, which means that she was trying to make more money. And realistically, it doesn't seem like the actions of a crack addict. I know that the people who suggest that she was experimenting with crack cocaine did say experimenting, but again, it just doesn't fall in line with the circumstances, in my opinion. So the car was impounded, and as I said, Brianna's housemate wasn't even there that weekend. She was away with her boyfriend. So Brianna is missing that Friday night around you know, anytime after 11:20 when she finished her shift. The car was found the next day, which was on the Saturday. The car was then impounded, and then when her housemate got back on the Monday, she did see the note that Brianna had left, but she kind of just assumed that it was for that day. But when she came back the next day and realized that the note was untouched, it was in the same place, and there was no sign of Brianna, she was like, that's strange. And so that's when she decided to call Brianna's mum, Kelly, and be like, hey, I haven't seen Brianna, but this note's been here for a while and just wondering if she's coming home anytime soon. This is when Kelly gets a little bit worried about her daughter, and she starts calling all of Brianna's friends, and when her friends say that they haven't heard from or seen Brianna, that's when she starts calling her jobs and being like, has Brianna come in for her shifts? And lo and behold, Brianna did not show up for any shift after that last shift on the Friday. So that also meant that she didn't show up for her new job, and that is alarming. So it was that Tuesday that a missing persons report was filed with the police. Oddly enough, and this might just be, I don't know how impound places work, but the car that was impounded belonged and was registered to Kelly. She was just loaning it to her daughter. So I would assume that there would be some sort of call earlier than Thursday to let them know that their car had been impounded. But apparently, no one let them know. So it was on Thursday when Kelly was giving the police photos of Brianna that police were like, oh, is this your car? And showed her photos of the car where it was backed in to a freaking building. All of this information is crucial, and by that point they had lost almost a week. Kelly said that she doesn't think that Brianna would ever back into a building, and that it looked like somebody else had done it, and possibly on purpose. When people heard that Brianna had gone missing, there were a whole bunch of tips that came in, and there were a couple of witnesses, and I'm gonna read this out. This was just on the Wikipedia page if you want to see what witnesses have said. One man said that he drove by the old Dutchburn house that night around midnight. So that would have been, it takes like 2 minutes to drive like 1K down the road. So that would have been at least 35 minutes after her car would have ended up there, we can assume. And this man who saw the car said that the headlights were on when he drove past. He did say that he didn't see anyone around the car. And then another man said that he drove past at 12:30 and there was a turn signal flashing light. So the indicator was on. And then interestingly enough, Brianna's ex-boyfriend had been at a party in the area and he drove past it at 4 a.m. He said that the car looked familiar and that's why he looked, but he didn't stop and look. He just drove past. And then some people stopped the next day because they thought it was funny and they took photos of the car backed into the house. And when they took these photos, that's when they also saw the loose change on the floor and all of the other items that were around the car. There was also said to be a slice of lime on the bonnet of the car, and there was also a broken necklace or a broken bracelet, but that hasn't been confirmed by police just yet. And initially police ruled out any sort of foul play. They, I guess from the circumstances, believed that Brianna was a runaway. But when her family got the car back, things like her glasses, her medication, her contact lenses, her bank card, everything that she needed was still in the car. The only thing that is missing is Brianna, the clothes she was wearing, and her car keys. So then eventually police started to consider that there was foul play involved. And another thing to note is that Brianna grew up extensively trained in jiu-jitsu. So it would have taken either a surprise attack or it would have taken her being vulnerable or a couple of people to have pulled this off, because she was extensively trained in jiu-jitsu. There was a search done. It was on foot and with dogs in the surrounding area, but they didn't really come up with anything. And this was also in that time frame where police did rule out any sort of foul play. The car had already been towed before they received it back. They did do some investigations, as in they processed the car through a crime lab. They did swab some stains, and this will be a lot later on down the track, but they did say that they got some DNA from the car. They just wouldn't elaborate on it, and that was in like 2016, whereas this originally happened like 10 years prior. So this case has been linked to the Maura Murray case, and FBI did come in and have a look at it to see if it was related, but they did rule it out. Some people question why they ruled it out. I personally don't question why they ruled it out. I think they're very different circumstances, just because they're in a close proximity and they kind of look similar. Those are the only similarities to me. I think the circumstances are what's really important here, and I just think they're just so different circumstances. But anyway, the FBI came in and they said to the investigators on her case that, hey, this car situation looks like it was staged. And so police came around and they were like, okay, so we think this is staged. So a week after Brianna's disappearance, there was a tipster, an anonymous tipster, who claimed that there were 2 local drug dealers who were acquaintances of Brianna who were keeping her in an unknown location, and claimed that she was alive for that week after her disappearance. These 2 drug dealers' names were Raymond Ryan and Nathaniel Jackson. Now, they were acquaintances of Brianna. Their places were raided, and although the police did find a substantial amount of drugs, they found no trace of Brianna at all. And then in 2004, the police would receive another anonymous tip in the form of a letter. And this would also be naming those 2 people again, saying that they had Brianna, and Brianna was alive a week after they had taken her, and that they actually took her to another drug dealer's house and kept her in the basement while the owner of the house was incarcerated for drug trafficking charges. So this letter was in incredible graphic detail. They said that Raymond wanted Brianna to give him money so that he could buy crack cocaine, which is interesting because if he's a dealer, he's the one who has crack cocaine. But anyways, the story goes is that he freaked out because she said no and wouldn't give him money, and then he accidentally killed her out of a rage. Then the letter describes how they dismembered her. I won't go through that, but apparently she was fed to pigs on a local pig farm. On top of these anonymous tips, Brianna's mum, Kelly, and Brianna's dad, Bruce, were receiving like constant anonymous phone calls. The callers would say that Brianna was tied to a tree for some time and then she was discarded in a nearby lake. There was another brief theory that a girl named Keely LaCrosse was involved. Now, 3 weeks before Brianna went missing, they had an altercation. This is where I have questions about the boyfriend, because all of these people were at a party and apparently there was an altercation over a boy, a romantic interest. So Brianna goes and sits in her boyfriend's truck, and then this girl comes up, Keely comes up to the window, and she knocks on the window, and so Brianna like rolls down the window and she gets like 3 punches to the face. She gets a concussion and a broken nose. Brianna had refused to fight Keely, so after that she went to the hospital, and then she ended up pressing charges. So that was 3 weeks prior to her going missing. The charges were dropped because she was missing, but police did confirm later on that this Keely girl had nothing to do with it, but it was a brief theory and people still bring it up to this day, and it is on like the Wikipedia page. The next theory we have is the poker table theory. There was a woman who went into a casino, and the man, like the worker man who did the tables, was like, that girl is the missing girl. Instead of approaching this woman who did kind of look similar to Brianna, he waited until the end of the night and then he went to law enforcement. So then the police went to the casino and they got the footage and they showed Brianna's brother, and pretty much instantly he was like, that's not my little sister. But then Brianna's grandma was like, no, that's definitely her. And then when they showed the parents, they were undecided, and they were like, we don't want to say yes just because we are hopeful that it is. And then when the media got hold of this, they re-enhanced the footage, and it's, yeah, her parents saying, actually, that's not our daughter. There have been other such sightings, but none of them have panned out to actually be Brianna in the end. When police did tell the public that they had actually found DNA from the swabs from the car, that was in 2016. It's been 4 years and there's been no mention of that DNA, which means that whoever the DNA belongs to hasn't been entered into the system. And then that same year, the old Dutch burn house actually burned to the ground. I'm not sure if it was arson though, it didn't specify. So we're left with some questions. The old Dutch burn house, as I've read on Reddit, is just an abandoned historical site. There's no reason for anyone to go there. It's literally just an empty building. The only reason someone would go there is if they were meeting someone. Or, I mean, like in my mind, I think like, what if it was an accident? Like, what if she realized she was running out of petrol? Or what if, you know, she didn't have a cell phone, so no one would have been calling her. But what if someone flagged her down and she parked in there? Or there are just so many things that could happen, but a big theory is that she was meeting someone at the old Dutch burn house. And then that meeting in the mall comes into play again. Earlier that day, remember when she went out to the parking lot, and when her mother came out, she was just inconsolable, like shaken, shook. Does that incident play into her disappearance and what happened at the old Dutch burn house that night? Probably one of the biggest theories on this case is that it was drug related, drug or money related. There are some people who say that she was seen a week after her disappearance. I don't see any evidence for that, and the police haven't confirmed it. The family haven't confirmed it. They haven't even mentioned it. This is just an internet theory. And here's my thing. Drug addiction runs in my family. I know that you can be a high-functioning, well-functioning drug addict to some point. Not always with crack cocaine though. For me, when that rumor comes up that she was experimenting with hard drugs, I think people have taken this and run with it a little bit too much, because, you know, there are people who can try drugs once and realize it's not for them. Brianna seemed like she was really honestly trying to make it on her own. She had moved out of home. Even though she had found it tough enough to drop out of school, she enrolled herself in a GED program, and she literally sat her exam that day. She was starting a brand new job the next day, and she was already working a job, and she had just moved in with her friend. So that doesn't sound like somebody who is addicted to crack at this point. And it also doesn't seem likely that it was an accidental overdose, because the timeline is, it's just too quickly, you know, the timeline just doesn't really allow for that. On top of that, if it was an accidental overdose, it would be smarter to leave the body there, because it looks like, well, it looks like what it would be, an accidental overdose. And then I also want to bring up again the 2 uncashed paychecks in the passenger's seat. That doesn't really sound like somebody who is fiending for their next fix. And I also don't think that Brianna would have been able to go the entire day after sitting a GED exam with her mother and then going to work. And then, you know, it doesn't make sense that she would have been that far into crack, you know what I'm saying? If she even was into crack cocaine, because so far that's not something that the police have come out and said. And then in terms of owing someone money, like I've said in all of the other cases where somebody has owed somebody money, obviously, if you've watched my story times recently, I'm having my own problems with drug dealers, and I'm not even a drug person. I just dated one. If you owe someone money, they're not going to get their money by killing you. And in this day and age, there are so many drug dealers out there, like small time drug dealers that aren't in these huge operations like you would think. Like this isn't the mafia. This isn't, you know, a bikie gang. These are 17-year-old kids who realistically don't have time to build up enough debt to be murdered over. It is also extremely unlikely, like I have never, and listen, the amount of drug dealers I've accidentally dated, no drug dealer is going to give a drug addict, or anyone for that matter, not even friends or family, drugs for an IOU. No one's gonna be like, oh yeah, just pay me back later. Drug dealers don't do that. So I don't see how she would have owed money unless she was working in the industry, which is highly unlikely because she only just dropped out of high school, only just moved out of her parents' house. So even though that is the main theory on this case, I wholeheartedly reject the drug or owing someone money theory. I can, however, believe somebody doing something to Brianna, a 17-year-old girl, nearing midnight, for something else. And that is quite unfortunate, but it is something that happens every single day, and it is, to me, more likely. I can imagine a situation where Brianna was unfortunately stuck or where she was vulnerable. I'm not saying that it was completely an opportunistic attack. I'm saying it could be, but my theory also does kind of leak into stalking, maybe borderline stalking. I think that the parking lot incident earlier that day does have a lot to do with it. I do think that young women, she was only 17, find it hard to report things that they can't wholeheartedly say, hey, this was wrong. I've been there. I felt that way also as a grown-ass adult. I'm closer to 30 than I am 20. What I do think is if she owed someone money and they were making threats in the parking lot, it would have been so much easier for her to have warned someone or told someone, especially with her mother in the car right afterwards. Something that I can't imagine her flagging with her mother is if she was possibly harassed by someone she knows, possibly someone from school that she liked, or possibly an older guy that she thought that she liked. Is it possible that somebody wanted something more from Brianna, something that wasn't money or drugs? Was she told earlier that day to meet them at the old Dutchburn house that night after her shift? Is this possibly what the stain was in the backseat of her car? Now, the police haven't confirmed where the DNA came from, but they did confirm that they did get DNA from the vehicle. So, was the DNA from the stain? What kind of stain was it? Was it a blood stain, or was it maybe a semen stain? Or was it a different kind of DNA? So that is my theory on this case, and to me that makes way more sense. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Let me know if there's anything that I've missed. I'm pretty sure I haven't, but if I have, let me know. Give this video a thumbs up. It really does help. And if you want to see more True Crime Sundays, I do one every Sunday, even if I am sick. I feel like I got better throughout this video. I don't just do True Crime Sundays though. I do story times, I do makeup videos, I do like day in the lives, I do mukbangs, I do a little bit of everything. So if you like my vibe, click subscribe. Oh, can that be my new thing? If you like my vibe, please subscribe. Oh, I hope no one, let me know if you know of any other YouTuber that has that as their slogan, because that is now mine. What do you actually mean? That was brilliant. Brilliant, I tells ya. Wow, that just became way too positive for a freaking scary video. Okay, anyways, let me know what you think. I'll see you in the next one. If you like my vibe, subscribe.